What's up, Browns fans? Welcome to episode 13 of the Dawgs podcast. Let's kick this thing off.
Welcome to the Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Renneker, Zach Kopp, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Happy to be back in the studio. Episode 13, we're starting to climb up there. Before you know it, we're not going to be saying episode numbers anymore at the beginning. We're just going to be welcome back.
Just flying, man. We're just spitting these things out.
It really is crazy. That's 13 weeks. So what, 3 months that we've been doing this? It doesn't feel like it's been 3 months. It's been a whirlwind of emotions for me, man. The highs and the lows of the podcast life.
Well, and all the physical changes of the studio.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I went from a laid off peasant to I'm back at work, peasant still. So it's been a crazy 3 months. Before we get into this episode, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, please click that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers. You can check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Handles are at the top of the screen. Also want to give another shout out, Percy Gardner's podcast, 99 Miles Per Hour with Percy Gardner. He's really starting to get some big time guests on his show. I think this next episode coming out, he's going to have a pitching coach that he had when he was for the Indians. And I don't want to spoil anything for him, but just be on the lookout. He might be having, some current MLB players on there at some point. That's a real possibility. So give his show a look. It's super entertaining. It's super fun. And he's on our network, and it's fun to support him. I watch it every week, so you guys should check it out. All right, well, let's move into some league news. Let's go around the NFL before we dive into the episode. I don't know if you guys saw this. Tom Pelissero, NFL reporter, tweeting out, the NFLPA came out and said only 56 players have tested positive for COVID so far since the start of training camp. That's only 2% of the 2,600 players on active rosters and well under a 1% positivity rate in terms of total tests administered. To me, that just screams we're going to have an NFL season, especially considering, I don't know about you guys, but first, all the false positives in the NFL, then our own governor had a false positive.
Yeah,
so I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy on the show, but I think there's going to be an NFL, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And no big name Browns players opting out.
I know we're thin on the offensive line now.
A little bit. Yeah.
Forbes.
What do we have?
Yeah, Forbes.
Four guys on the O line.
Yeah. So we might need to get some help in there.
Billings on the defensive line,
but no starters.
No starters. Call me crazy. The Jets released that guy. What was that guy's name?
Oh, you're right. I'll look it up. Go ahead.
They released their starting right guard, and turns out, what's his name? Brian Winters. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I don't know much about this guy, but he started. That's more experience than we have on our roster, that position. The only hole maybe on our entire team.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe if he's any decent, I'd give him a look. At least see what he has to offer. That's the one hole in our line right now is right guard. Mm-hmm. Unless you're really high on what's his name? Wyatt Teller?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that we need to go out and try to get somebody because of the no preseason, and we're just trying to hey, well, one of these guys is going to have to be the starter, where we could go get a guy that was a starter.
Yeah.
Man, how weird is week one's going to look?
Yeah, it's going to be
strange, man. No preseason. We don't get to see these guys ahead of time for any team. Man.
And then one opponent just to roll out week one, just, hey,
the team that's going to go 16-0 and just destroy the league. Yeah.
Well, I feel like people are getting a little crazy on that. Nobody ever gets predicted to go 16-0. They're always like, oh, they're going to lose a game somewhere. I mean, come on.
Well, they're just getting if you look at their schedule, they're favored in every game. There's not one game on there there's games obviously where you're like, oh, that team could beat this team, but they're favored in literally every single game.
Well, it's just like no team's ever favored to go 0-16.
So wait a minute.
It can be done.
It can be done. I've seen it happen live on TV.
Yeah, he tried to do it twice.
Yeah.
They gave it a hell of a shot.
Yeah.
Definitely other Browns news. Jarvis was activated off the PUP list along with a couple others.
So what do you guys think about, I've been hearing a lot of the talk about Kareem Hunt being like the slot receiver or like the number 3 receiver on the team.
The guy's scary athletic.
Yeah, I'm one of those. Yeah, I'm one of those guys that like I'd want my best players on the field as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if Kareem Hunt's sitting over on the bench for 50-60% of the plays because he's only being used as a running back, I feel like we're not utilizing him to his full capability.
Yeah, but so as good as Kareem Hunt is and as athletic as he is he a better receiver than
Rashard Higgins?
Rashard Higgins?
Freddie sure thought so.
Yeah, well, and we saw what that got him. He's a tight ends coach now. That's my, I'm not going to argue. Kareem Hunt is probably like an all-around better football player than Rashard Higgins, but at the receiver position, Rashard Higgins is probably faster.
It depends on what kind of routes they're asking him to run, right? If they're asking him to run, the route tree like a receiver, you're going to want Higgins doing that. But if you're operating in the middle, trying to size up linebackers and take advantage of the slower speed in that area, I think Kareem Hunt could be that guy.
Yep.
So I just
agreed.
I don't want to force him onto the field.
No, but if you can tell him we're going to get you the ball 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, and then you be a running back at that point, that's pretty sweet because that dude can do it.
And in open field,
yes,
he is scary.
Yeah,
he is very, very dangerous. You can make the argument way more dangerous than Rashard Higgins. But
yeah, I mean, if you take a look, if we're going to run a 2 tight end set, I don't think we're going to. I think the Browns are going to be a lot of 2 wide receiver sets this year with multiple tight ends on the field, running a fullback and a running back. I was a fan of last year having Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb in the backfield because as a defense, who are you keying on?
Yep.
Because you don't know which one's getting the ball. So that was always something that, I don't understand why we didn't run more of that because it was successful almost every time we put that play out on the field. So
yeah, and I like that too because Hunt's the guy that you got to worry about catching the ball out of the backfield, but Nick Chubb's no slouch catching the ball. I mean, that dude's athletic and he can catch the ball. So it's pretty nice double-edged sword there.
I'll be really interested to see how Stefanski utilizes all this talent. I feel like Minnesota was obviously good, but he had a clear number 1 running back. He had, his clear number 1 tight end. I feel like he's got more talent on the Browns than he had on the Vikings, clearly. So it'll be very interesting to see how he utilizes all that talent and how he gets everybody the ball, keeps everybody happy, keeps defenses guessing. Yeah. It kind of sucks that there's no preseason to warm us up to this. The first time we're going to get to see if his system is what we think it's going to be is going to be week 1 against, one of the best teams in football.
I just hope it's not like last year. We watched Freddie the first year when he was the OC and it was like, wow, this guy can put together some stuff. Then he was the head coach and it was like, what happened? Like, did he forget everything? Did he just try to get too cute?
I think if you remember Freddie from his offensive coordinator days, we were very gimmicky, but it caught people off guard because, nobody knew who he was. And then he became the head coach and you realized all he was like smoke and mirrors. There was no substance to anything he did. And once people figured it out that he was like trying to outsmart everybody to the point that he was just an idiot, that it just became vanilla. It was so obvious we were going to be, shotgun, putting our tackles on an island. Basically, if you can just beat our tackles, which anybody could beat our tackles, you're going to be able to beat us.
Yeah, it was go deep or go home. So every week we just went home.
Yeah, with a loss.
Yep.
But, speaking of seeing some of our players earlier, I don't know if you guys also got to see this, but we finally got to see some of our Browns players in their new uniforms.
Yep. And
I think they look awesome. They look so much better, like in person and good pictures, not just like the renderings or, like the distant pictures we were seeing when we did our uniform episode. Those brown uniforms look awesome. Yeah. I want a brown one so bad.
I know, I do too. And yeah, you're right. It's so different than seeing just the generic model guy, right? Wearing the 20 jersey. You know, it's now you're seeing Baker and Garrett and Odell, and it's like, wow, these jerseys. I mean, it takes you back. I mean, it's traditional, but it's got just enough modern edge to the design that
takes you back to the good old days of 3 and 13.
Yes.
No, but I think they look awesome. I'm getting myself one of those the brown ones. This is the first time I've ever been like really pumped about brown, but I think it pops. It looks sweet.
Yeah, I'm just so glad they got rid of the last attempt.
Yeah.
Just didn't work.
It's kind of crazy too, because OBJ, if you guys remember his like big jersey unboxing or whatever, and he was just kind of like, oh, hey, that one's orange, whatever. Just toss him aside. He put up on the gram, some pictures and stuff. And he looks sweet. The brown one looks crazy good.
And I don't want to, I'm just so happy that Baker looks like a quarterback again this year.
Yeah.
He doesn't look homeless. he got like a haircut, got a real job. He's trim again. Like, I don't know. I'm just so pumped about this season just based on like little things like that. Not even the fact that I think we got a good head coach and stuff like that now.
Mm-hmm. I think the last year was important for a guy, especially a guy like Baker. When you go out and you just get steamrolled for 16 games and you're the kind of guy that Baker is, and I mean, he's got that high motor and he's so competitive and he's a winner, to get beat down like that's, if you don't bounce back from that, then I got to question that whole narrative.
Yeah.
Big slice of humble pie.
Zach knows what I'm talking about. I
don't think Zach ever saw that Baker in Oklahoma. I don't ever think he was steamrolling people.
I think that Baker has a lot to prove coming into this year, because if they come out and and I've said this on earlier episodes, if they come out and they flop in the first 4 or 5 weeks, people are going to be calling for Case Keenum. I mean, I know that we're saying, that we brought him in for a backup. We've had this conversation, but if things aren't going right, it'll be a shorter leash than what, a lot of the experts and everybody think, just because of how Cleveland is.
I don't even think it'll be a fan thing. I'm more thinking it'll be a Stefanski. Like, hey, my job's on the line. I've seen too many of these coaches come in.
Get 1 year.
1 year.
Get 8 games.
My biggest fear for this year coming up is there's so many mouths to feed on offense. That's so much pressure on Baker. But like we've said, he's that kind of guy that thrives on that.
To me, too, I think as long as we're winning, people will be happy.
Yeah.
Winning fixes everything.
Yeah.
It's secure.
Well, hey, speaking on some of, we were talking about Freddie and stuff. That brings us to the point of today's episode. We were kind of, trying to think of ideas for the episode, what we wanted to do. And we recalled some of our former episodes, getting into some heated arguments about who was the better coach. So we thought, man, why don't we rank our coaches from the last 10 years? We've had a million of them, so we can do this. Imagine if you're the Steelers trying to do this.
Yeah, we can basically do March Madness with this.
Yeah. So, and then, we were going to go through and just have everybody rank their coaches 1 through 7 in the last 10 years. And then I had the idea, I was like, let's do a tournament to the death. So
tournament to unemployment.
Yeah. So what we did is we made a bracket. And in order to seed these guys, we didn't want to argue about seeding because, that kind of defeats the point of the episode. So we thought the most fair way to seed these guys was based on win percentage, which I'm going to tell you right now, none of these guys had good win percentages. So I'll give you, we had 7 head coaches in the last 10 years, which is embarrassing.
Yeah.
And we seeded them as follows. The number 1 seed with a first round bye is Gregg Williams. He's the only person over 500, a 625 winning percentage. And I almost excluded him because he only coached 8 games, but
he won more games in 8 games than Hue Jackson did in 3 seasons.
Yeah. So
he counts.
In a half season.
Yeah. So Gregg Williams is the number 1 seed. And because of the ineptitude of all of our head coaches and the fact that this guy only got 1 season and he got a season with tons of talent, the number 2 seed is actually Freddie Kitchens with a 375 winning percentage. So I guess that's actually 37.5%. So, not very good. Coming in the 3 seeds, Mike Pettine, 31%. Eric Mangini was 31.2% with the 5 seed. So they were actually very close. Pat Shurmur with a even 300. He's, going to the Hall of Fame in baseball at the 5 seed.
Right.
Chudzinski, Rob Chudzinski with a 250. And then our boy Hue, a .088.
With all your ha listed beside it because of how bad that was.
So,
does anybody else need a barf bag?
Yeah, that's our coaches, guys. That's our coaches in the last 10 years. Nobody above 375, and the 375 was Freddie. If you take Freddie out of that with his 1 season in which we had, Pro Bowl talent everywhere, the highest guy is Mike Pettine with a 31% win percentage.
You know what's sad is even if Freddie Kitchens had the crap talent that Hue Jackson had, he still couldn't have done much worse.
No.
No.
And you can make the argument too that maybe some of these other guys, imagine like a Mangini or even I hate to say like a Pat Shurmur with the coach, like the staffing and then like the talent that was there last year. Imagine what some of these guys could have done. Well, I mean, we won't get to do that because they're all like, special teams assistants for Boston College and stuff like that.
So nationwide insurance.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So, like I said, Gregg Williams gets the first round bye. So that actually brings up the first matchup we're going to talk about here is the 4 versus 5 seeds. Eric Mangini versus Pat Shurmur. Eric Mangini coached in 2009 and 2010. Pat Shurmur coached, right after him, 2011, 2012. So there's actually probably a lot of overlapping players. So like this is a pretty, good argument for argument's sake as to, who was the better coach. Eric Mangini went 10-22. And Pat Shurmur went 9-23, so really not that far off in their records. So just to give everybody an idea how this is going to go, obviously there's 4 of us. We don't want a tiebreaker. So Zach, myself, and Justin are going to be the votes. Josh is still going to throw his 2 cents in and, kind of push us in a direction. But when it comes down to voting time to see who advances, it's going to be between the 3 of us. So we're not sitting here for 4 hours trying to, break the tie.
Well, I'll just be the one to let you guys know if you made the right choice or not.
Correct.
So without further ado, we can move into this.
Round 1.
Fight. For me, this is clearly, even though there's only a 1-game difference, Eric Mangini all day, every day.
So, okay. So now are you looking just at their tenure in Cleveland?
Yes, just in Cleveland.
Okay. Because Eric Mangini was a good coach elsewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Elsewhere. But if you look when he was in Cleveland, he...
Very 5-11-ish all day.
I mean,
both seasons.
He had the what was it? The one more win than Pat Shurmur. Looking at the stats, so Pat Shurmur went 4-12, then 5-11. He had actually a better defense in his years than Eric Mangini had. He had the team 5th out of... Who would have thought that in 2011, the Browns were the 5th best defense in football?
Yeah.
Out of the 32 teams.
We've had good defenses, man.
5th best defense, only give up 19 points a game. Problem was we were scoring 13.6 points per game. But I'm going Mangini as well. I wasn't a Pat Shurmur fan at all. He was just a guy that I was frustrated week after week to find out how are we going to lose this week? What's Pat Shurmur going to do to cost us this game? But I don't think it's as broad Browns career-wise as what many people think of, like Eric Mangini, because things weren't going right when he was here either.
No, here's my thing, though, is Eric Mangini, if you watch the Browns, you saw, especially in his second season, you were starting to see progress.
Yep.
We were competing in those games. We were creative on offense, doing what we had to do to score points. I remember like Cribbs lining up at quarterback, all kinds of stuff. I just remember with
the
Pat
same
Shurmur,
stuff you'd call a wrinkle for Freddie Kitchens.
Well, yeah, but when your whole offense is the wrinkle, that's the problem. Mangini would throw it in times that were smart. Pat Shurmur, man, he just made terrible. He was like the Freddie Kitchens before Freddie Kitchens, when Freddie Kitchens was still playing quarterback at Alabama or whatever.
Yep.
Just terrible decision making. I remember we'd be like down 3 or down 2 with 2 minutes to go in the game. Instead of going for 2, he'd kick the extra point, and then we'd try to kick an onside or something. We'd lose by 1. He was so bad.
Do we want to look at? I know you were talking about Zach not scoring very many points, so it looks like. Correct me if I'm looking at this wrong. Mangini was operating with Brady Quinn and Colt McCoy, and Shurmur was operating with Colt McCoy and Brandon Whedon.
Correct.
Yes.
So they did have that crossover, at least in the quarterback position.
Yeah, and then running back wise, Mangini benefited in 2010, his 5-11 season. He benefited from that was the Peyton Hillis year.
Ooh.
That was the Peyton Hillis year, 1,100 yards rushing, almost 1,200. And then the next season, Pat Shurmur's first year, he got 500-yard Peyton Hillis.
he made it to the mountaintop. He was done.
He got on that Madden cover and was like, I'd call it a career.
So, but we all agree it was Mangini, right? To me, this was the easiest one.
Yeah, it's definitely Mangini.
Okay. So we won't spend too much time on that one just because I think it's a clear-cut favorite. This, we're going to move into some fun stuff now. This is the 3-6 matchup. I don't know if you guys heard about this on our defensive draft episodes. This puts Mike Pettine up against Rod Chudzinski.
All right, everybody listening, just sit back, hang tight.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
So Mike Pettine coached in 2014 and 2015 with a 10-22 record. Chudzinski he got boned, only got 1 year, 4-12 record. Okay. To me, I'm calling the upset here. To me, Rob Chudzinski was a better coach than Mike Pettine.
You're crazy. We've already been over this. It's not even close.
And here we go.
What do you mean it's not even close?
It's not even close. Mike Pettine was a better coach.
You're insane.
I'm not insane. He had you're talking about guys who inherited almost the exact same roster and comparing them whatnot. The rosters weren't that much different for Mike Pettine and Chudzinski. It was one right after the other. And Chudzinski had Josh Gordon taking the league by storm, huge year, record numbers for the Browns, and 4 less games or 2 or 4 less games, whatever it was that year. And Pettine never had that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Chudzinski's quarterback get hurt?
Yeah, the same quarterback that you put down saying Brian Hoyer's not any good.
Yeah, but if you're going to use the argument that Brian Hoyer, is the best quarterback we had in the last 10 years, then don't tell me that Mike Pettine's a good coach when he couldn't win with him.
But he did.
He did. He won 7 games with him.
He won. Now, hang on. Now, this
records,
is my 2 cents jumping
10
in.
and 22. He got to coach 16 more games, and he won what? He won 6 more games.
Okay, the year that Brian Hoyer had his year was the year that Johnny Manziel was forced down his throat. No. And then that transitioned the next year into Josh McCown.
Yeah, Johnny Manziel was never forced down Mike Pettine's throat. He was never.
Yes, he was.
No. We drafted Johnny, and you know why people said we got to play Johnny? Because we just kept losing with Brian Hoyer. We lost 5 games in a row to end the season.
Yeah,
Right. And if you want to go back and
then
look
to start the next season, we were terrible again. He was not. No, you know what forced Johnny Manziel down Mike Pettine's throat? The fact that he could not win a game. We were 7-4, and he could not win one football game down the stretch.
But Ray Farmer got suspended for texting down. Doing stuff you're not allowed to do.
He was 7-9 his first season. So let's play
a coach. We're going to blame losing games on a GM texting.
Okay, so
we're going to blame it on the way he drafted.
Yeah, that's what I was going to. The argument that draft is destroyed that whole his coaching career.
That was like the pinnacle of dysfunction.
There was 2 miserable, horrible, complete misses in the first round.
Okay, so yeah, if you go and you
Miserable
look at that.
business.
Okay, so you take Chud's first season, 4-12, Pettine's first season, 7-9. Of those 9 losses, 4 of the games were less.
What was
Pettine's
Pettine's second season?
Is that the year with Johnny? Is that which one you're talking about?
What was the second season?
We'll bring it up that it's the year with Johnny.
What was the second season?
3-13. So one less.
So maybe if Chud would have got a second season, who knows what he would have done?
Well, there was a reason Chud didn't get a second season.
He would have got a second season with your Brian. The season that Pettine went 3-13 or 7-9. Chud would have had himself, Norv Turner, Ray Horton. He would have had Brian Hoyer. He would have had all that talent. I guarantee you, Chud's not losing 5 games in a row at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, okay. Also, I'm just saying you just completely went over the point of like an argument just to make yourself sound better. That Pettine of those 9 losses, literally possession here or there changes that season.
A loss is a loss.
Okay.
I don't care how they lost.
I'm going to look at Chud's.
I don't care how they lost. A loss is a loss.
A loss is different though. Getting blown out and being wow, this guy has no idea what he's doing and losing a game by a point here or 2 points here.
A loss is a loss.
I'm pretty sure I looked this stuff up and it was like crazy that the Browns lost the lead in 3 out of those 4 games in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Oh, well, December 14th against the Bengals, we did play a tough one against the Bengals. We only lost 30-0.
Oh my gosh.
We only lost 30-0 to the Bengals, the 3rd loss in a row at home with a potential playoff berth on the line. If we can just win 2 games, But
hey, wasn't Pettine? Didn't Pettine have us within 2 games of making the playoffs? How many games were Chud out of the playoffs?
probably not by that much. He only won 3 more. We're talking about Mike Pettine being the supreme coach.
He won 3 more games. Chud only won 4.
Yeah, and Mike Pettine only won 7.
He had to double his win total to have more wins than Pettine had in a year.
3. We're gonna say Pettine was so much better than Chud over 3 wins. 3 wins is the difference between
in Browns history. The last 7 coaches, yes, 3 wins is
let's look at some of these wins that the Browns had too with Pettine.
Almost beating the Super Bowl champs Denver Broncos.
Yeah,
and lost to him in overtime.
The Titans were garbage then. The Steelers, which is a good win, but they were not good. This is back when like Tommy Maddox and stuff was, the Raiders have been garbage. The Buccaneers, garbage. The Bengals, garbage. And this is how you could tell that Mike Pettine completely lost the team. We beat the Bengals 24-3. Okay. And then 6 weeks later, we lost 30-0.
You saying Tommy Maddox? Who the hell are you talking about with Tommy Maddox? Are you serious? 2014 Pittsburgh Steelers were good. They made the playoffs.
Yep.
Tommy Maddox.
We lost the Steelers too, week 1. We lost to the Ravens. Who was the Ravens quarterback back then? We lost 2 points to the Ravens. And no, we didn't beat the Raiders were garbage, the Buccaneers were garbage, the Bengals were garbage, the Falcons were garbage. All of our wins were against crap. And like I said, he completely lost the team. Completely lost the team. We lost 26 going down the stretch. Lost 26-10 to the Bills. Lost 25-24 to the Colts. 30-0 to the Bengals. 17-13 to the Panthers and 20-10 again to the Ravens. Our team completely gave it. That's the biggest problem I had too with Mike Pettine. He was not a player's coach. Nobody wanted. By the end of that season, you couldn't have got Mike Pettine out of there fast enough. People hated him. Notice he hasn't even got an interview for head coach since he left Cleveland.
None of these guys have. Nobody
okay, hold on a second. Where's Chudzinski coaching right now?
Do you know?
It's college, right?
Boston College. Yeah.
Boston College. Where's Mike Pettine coaching? He's defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. So if you look at who's got the better job right now,
where's 13-3?
Where's
top 10 defense in the league?
Where's Freddie Kitchens coaching? He's tight ends coach for the Jets. Where's Lincoln? Where's Lincoln Riley?
Not talking about Freddie
where's Lincoln Riley coaching? Oh, he's in college. Freddie must be better than Lincoln Riley because one's in college and one's in the pros.
No, not one's a tight ends coach and one's a head coach of a powerhouse college football team. Yeah. Chudzinski isn't even the head coach of a college team. He keeps stats and breaks down film for him.
All right, I seriously want to come back to, and I know, Blake, you're going to jump on me for this again, but
absolutely.
Also, real quick, I want to say that Bengals team that beat us 30-0 playoffs that year. Just saying. They went 10-5 that year.
You know who didn't go to the playoffs? The Browns, because we lost 5 in a row at the end of the season.
Okay, so for Pettine, I mean, you got to understand the Johnny effect was real for this guy. I mean, it did derail his opportunity in Cleveland because I'm looking through the box scores of his second season, the 3-13 season. Johnny Manziel started the first 2 games, and then it was Josh McCown for the next 4. And then after that, it was McCown and Manziel, and then it was Manziel, and then it was McCown. I mean, the whole Johnny thing was a nightmare. An absolute nightmare because Haslam was like, I'm going all in on this guy. He's the guy. And Johnny's like, I like white powder more than anything else.
I was at this Tennessee Titans game where Johnny lit it up. We won 28-14. I was at that game.
He was lit up.
So I was at that game. One of his
wins.
Maybe if he would have been like, Johnny's the guy, we're going to go with him. We're going to build an offense around this guy. I'm not saying it works, but guess what gives you a better chance than just constantly? It's your quarterback, and you're in the public eye.
That's fair. Maybe he did. How do we know he didn't say, all right, we're going to build an offense around Johnny, and then they're like, hey, everybody, give Johnny a round of applause. Wait a second, he's not even here. Johnny, are you here today?
I know how I know he didn't say that because literally I remember press conferences where he's just talking bad about his own quarterback all the time.
Hey, that great game.
Even if you think your quarterback game.
Fantastic game against that Tennessee Titans. Johnny lit up the 3-13 Tennessee Titans. One of the best teams in the AFC that year.
Hey, He threw a touchdown pass on like second play of the game.
Yeah, he threw 2 of his 7 touchdown passes in 6 games.
Listen, I'd like to see the first half of that game. We were letting Johnny actually play, and then the second half we went into like just don't lose this game mode, and he threw like 6 passes in the second half.
All right, hey. How about closing arguments? We'll let Justin actually be the tiebreaker on this one because if we spend much more time on round 1, we're not getting through this bracket.
To me, it's Chud all day.
Sell me on it, guys. Sell me on it.
It's Chud all day.
Closing arguments.
He went 4 and
30 seconds.
He went 4 and 12. He went 4 and 12 with not a great roster. The very next season, Mike Pettine gets a better roster, goes 7 and 9. Don't tell me Chud.
Blake, I don't completely disagree with you on that.
Okay. So
you don't think Pettine's roster was better?
They destroyed their team for years with their draft picks.
Okay, I want to know who was the better roster. How was it a better roster? Who are you picking out? Being
quarterback.
Who?
Pettine got to play with Hoyer for a whole season,
and then he also had Jason Campbell, who was a competent NFL quarterback. Was a starter for multiple teams.
Who had that?
That was Chud's second quarterback. He had Brian Hoyer, and then Jason Campbell went 1 and 7.
Yeah, Jason Campbell, NFL floater guy. When was Jason Campbell ever a starting quarterback?
Washington, when he was really good, bro.
He was not really good.
And then he started in Seattle.
Yes, he was.
Who took his spot in Washington?
I don't know.
I don't know who took his spot.
Somebody took his spot. Because he wasn't that good.
Got older.
We always get good quarterbacks at the tail end of their career when they're not good anymore, just like Jake Delhomme. He was a good quarterback when he was Carolina. A good quarterback. Yep. Not everybody's going to be a good quarterback their entire...
so we got him at the end of his career when he wasn't that good. So Josh just proved my point.
Okay, so
Mike Pettine got to play with who you say is the best quarterback the Browns have had in 10 years, and he lost 5 games in a row after starting 7 and 4.
All right, closing argument, Zach. We got to get through this. I knew this one was going to be up.
So Mike Pettine is the better coach. Went 7 and 9 the next year, right after Chud got fired because they didn't want him anymore in Cleveland because he won 4 games.
As soon as Mike Pettine got a second season, a chance to build his program, he went 3 and 13.
No, he didn't build his program.
Chud never even got a chance to build a program.
We were over this. He did not build his program. He did not draft Johnny Manziel. He did not build his program. Okay, he didn't bring him in. But, I've already made the argument. I'm not going to keep saying the same stuff over and over again. Mike Pettine's still coaching the NFL.
All right, Justin.
Chudzinski's in college.
You got to break this tie, and you got to break it clean, man.
I'll go with just based on how crappy that draft was. Blake, don't freak out.
Hang on a second. One more second. You act like Chudzinski had some great draft to help him out.
I'm just saying that they set that team back with Johnny and with Gilbert.
Listen to this. Was Chudzinski's draft. 1st round pick, Barkevius Mingo. 3rd round pick, Leon McFadden. 6th round pick, Jamora Slaughter. 7th round pick, Armani Bryant. 7th round pick, Garrett. The Browns had 1 pick in the first 3 rounds. In the 3rd round, we took Leon McFadden. Don't tell Mike Pettine got screwed in the draft. Look, Chudzinski's an offensive-minded guy. We had Chudzinski and North Turner. We took Barkevius freaking Mingo, number 1 in the draft.
Hey, those guys that you just named that drafted defense, Pettine had him a top 5 defense. The years that he coached, we were top defense.
Jamora Slaughter, Armani Bryant, Garrett Gilkey, were they big key contributors?
They were on the roster for Pettine.
Were they big key contributors? No, they weren't.
They were on the roster for Pettine.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have to call this one a victory to Mike Pettine, and we are going to have to move on to the most enticing matchup in this bracket, I do believe.
Yeah, it just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
Now Pettine's going to get to go to the championship only because I can't argue this next one.
Well, we'll see what the listeners think. If you guys think that Blake's right with Chud, chime in. Let us know, please. That's what this is all about.
All right, what do we got next?
Next matchup: Freddie Kitchens, Hue Jackson.
You guys already know how I feel about this.
Yeah. So we've had this discussion already, and I'm going Freddie Kitchens on this one as a better coach than Hue Jackson.
All right.
Okay, so
this should complete. Yeah. Can we go back? This should completely.
Hold on.
Not put any merit to his argument from the last one.
Okay, what was
I'm sort of with you on that.
Okay, so Freddie Kitchens. Well, one, I'm not going to just make everybody always agree either. Hue Jackson, one of the biggest things that I hated about Hue Jackson is after he got fired, how he handled everything. That nothing was his fault, that he went 0-16, 1-15, 2-5-1. Nothing was his fault. If he was even quoted saying that if he was able to do in year 3 what he did or if he was able to take what they were doing in year 3 and do it in year 1, you mean 2-5-1?
Well, timeout though.
The guy who didn't start Baker Mayfield, didn't want to play Nick Chubb, and made all those decisions, said Cody Kessler was his guy. Trust me on this, guys. I'm going to take the 16th best quarterback on the draft board. We're going to take him early. We're going to take him 6th best quarterback off the board in the draft.
Timeout, though. If you're going to give Mike Pettine a pass because Johnny Manziel was shut down his throat.
You can't keep going back to these other things.
If you're gonna,
it's a different game.
If you're going to give Pettine a pass for having Johnny Manziel shoved down his throat, then you got to give Hue Jackson a pass for having Todd Haley shoved down his throat. He did not want to hire Todd Haley.
Haley was a very successful offensive coordinator, and him and Hue Jackson he wanted to do different things, and he was like, "Nah, man, we can't do that." If you watch Hard Knocks, it was definitely
Hue Jackson was the head coach, and he had an offensive coordinator shoved down his throat that he did not want, creating a power struggle, no cohesion in the offense.
Do you remember when Hue Jackson took over and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna call plays for the offense"? How well did we do?
We had no players, man. We were actively trying to lose. Justin just gave you Pettine for the draft. Let's look at the Browns drafts from those years.
Literally, there is a quote with Mike Pettine saying, or not Mike Pettine, Hue Jackson saying, "If I'm worth my salt as a coach, I'll get the most out of Deshaun Kaiser."
Well, he's got to say that kind of stuff.
He probably did get the most out of Deshaun Kaiser.
Yeah.
Deshaun Kaiser is one of the worst quarterbacks ever to play in the NFL.
And you thought in Hue Jackson should have won games with that guy? Probably the worst quarterback in the history of the NFL.
What I'm saying is that Hue Jackson if you look back at those teams, there's worse teams in the NFL that find ways to win games that are trying to lose games.
Miami.
Yeah, and the Browns in that time period couldn't do anything. Todd Haley was a really good offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. When we got him, I was excited. I was like, hey, we're getting a guy in here that knows how to call plays.
Yeah, I was excited too. But
and then in episode 1, I've researching for all this stuff. Episode 1 of Hard Knocks, and Todd Haley's like, hey, we should make practices a little bit more harder. We should be a little bit more tougher on the guys that practice. Hue Jackson, on now.
But here's the thing. So I was excited for Todd Haley too, but I'm not the coach of the Browns. Hue Jackson's the coach. If he didn't want him, he shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, but
if he didn't want him, he shouldn't have been there. It's just
ahead, Justin,
like Johnny for Mike Pettine. It's the exact same thing. Everybody, Jimmy and Dee were super excited for Johnny. So then Mike should have been like, well, I don't want him, but everybody's excited for him.
Hang on. So I'm sorry, but Shurmur and Chud have already left. They're, we sat them in the corner, and they actually walked out of the room.
That's the arguments he's flip-flopping.
Don't go there with the whole coaching wise, because I could say Mike Pettine's second year wasn't great because he didn't have Kyle Shanahan either. If you're going based on who their assistants were and who their coordinators were.
What I'm saying is you can't hold that against Hue Jackson. He didn't want that guy. The first time he ever had talent on his team, he didn't get to call the plays or run the team the way he wanted to run it.
So are you picking Hue in this matchup?
Yes.
Okay,
so I'm definitely taking
Freddie Kitchens is the worst NFL head coach I have ever seen.
Okay, here's the thing with Freddie. Looking back, the guy went 6-10. Won 6 games. I mean, he's one of the better coaches that we've had record-wise. And you're going to say talent was way different. Also, Freddie Kitchens never coached before in the NFL. First year as a head coach. Hey, guess what? Browns are one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl.
All right.
Preseason on paper.
A lot of expectations given down to Freddie Kitchens. A lot of weight on his shoulders, and not once did he ever come out and say that what went wrong with the Browns wasn't his fault.
So we're going to give, because there were high expectations and Freddie was new, it's okay you didn't do good. Hue Jackson,
6 games. He won 6 games.
Hue Jackson was a 1-season head coach. It's not like he came in with 25 years of head coaching experience.
Well, so
earlier, Blake, though, here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to preface this. I do agree with you. I would vote Hue too if I was voting on this thing. But earlier you did say a loss is a loss.
Yes.
Hue had a lot.
Yes,
more.
But to me that's not that's not. We won in spite of Freddie Kitchens, not because of Freddie Kitchens.
I'm with you on that.
Yes. You can't say that. And Hue Jackson had. I would like to go through our 53-man rosters, the 2 years of Hue, the 1-15, 0-16, and see how many of those players are still in the NFL. 15% maybe if we're lucky. How many of these players on Freddie's coach team are going to still be in the NFL in 5 years? 75%. How many of them are going to be Pro Bowlers?
They won't be on the Browns.
This guy was handed Super Bowl expectations and a Super Bowl roster, and he threw it down the drain.
So
6 wins.
So my problem here, yeah.
You're the tiebreaker again.
Yeah, so here's my thing with Freddie. From day one, Freddie never looked like a head coach. His players didn't look like they were there to play with him. Nobody was disciplined. The play calling was awful. That first Zach, I love you, know this, but that first Tennessee game, we should have known. 18 flags, this is not going to go well. There was no discipline. There was no organization.
I agree with you that Freddie definitely wasn't a head coach. My argument is that Hue Jackson isn't either.
I would
That's
say
why this one's tough.
Yeah, and you're probably right there. And it obviously shows he's literally, I don't even know if he's with Cincinnati anymore. I think they got rid of him when Zach Taylor came in. But at least from the outside looking in, Hue Jackson looked like he could be the coach. Freddie Kitchens, he would be wearing a shirt saying, "Let's beat Pittsburgh." The night before they would go to play Pittsburgh. Right after Myles Garrett hit a guy in the head with a helmet, hit Mason Rudolph. I mean, it's unreal. Like the things that happened last year, I've never seen anything like it. Like I was just like, wow.
Freddie Kitchens would have been the absolute best Browns fan to watch a game with.
Do you know what Freddie Kitchens should have been?
Coach.
He should have been a coach for like the XFL if they were like doing finishing moves out on the field or something like that. He would be premium coach.
He'd have been great at drawing up that 4-point extra point play from the 10-yard line.
And they would run in there and give somebody a DDT out of nowhere. Like the guy is an idiot. And if he's watching, I'm sorry, but it was a joke last year. I've never, as a Browns fan, been more sick to my stomach and disappointed in a season. Except for 15.
I'm not saying that Freddie Kitchens is one of the best coaches that the Browns had. I'm saying in this matchup, Hue Jackson, I'm saying this isn't an argument of who is like a better coach. It was who was the worst coach.
Freddie was the worst coach.
I don't think I get you have one season that you had with Freddie Kitchens.
Here's my argument.
Okay.
Hue Jackson went 1-15.
Right.
Okay.
Just because we blocked a field goal.
He went 1-15, got another chance. Went 0-16, got another chance. Because people thought this guy can still coach. Freddie Kitchens had our third best season in 20 years, and they said, you got to get the hell out of here. I don't think there was a bunch of guys knocking down the door to one of the Browns' job when we were going 1-15. You would have found somebody to be the coach. I mean, you could have found anybody would have taken an NFL job. So this guy went 1-15, 0-16, and still got brought back. Freddie went 6-10, and they said, you are awful. You got to go coach tight ends for the Jets.
Okay, Freddie was awful, but it wasn't just like, everybody was calling for Freddie's name. Everybody was calling for Hue Jackson's name. Nobody wanted to come to Cleveland. He was so great. He had us ranked 32nd and 31st both years that he was the coach in Cleveland. Name a coach out there that was like, hey, that's the team I want to go to. Bring me in or whatnot. Because if there was other options out there, we wouldn't have been keeping Hue.
You would. I disagree. I think we brought him back because we were trying to show continuity and we were trying to actually stick with somebody. And they knew that he had nothing. They were giving him
I already know where this is going. We're picking Hue Jackson, historically the worst NFL, the worst coach.
Because you pick Hue.
I will take
Justin
Hue.
picks
Absolutely.
He's the worst coach in major sports history.
You can
you were the tiebreaker, man.
I'm just saying. But I think it's very obvious. Freddie Kitchens is complete garbage.
And Zach, I'm with these guys. I'm sorry. I know.
It's all right. You guys choose the worst coach.
This is the worst.
I know deep down you want to take Hue Jackson, but you've got to be the bad guy.
Now, hang on. Now, if Hue makes it out of the second round, then I got to leave. We got to shut the show down. We can't talk about Browns anymore. So
yeah,
let's move on to Blake. What do you got for your second round matchups here?
So moving on. We got Gregg Williams against Eric Mangini, and then we got Mike Pettine versus Hue Jackson.
Oh, Lord.
So
can we change this?
For those of you guys who might not know this, Gregg Williams, only Browns coach in the last 20 years to have a winning record with the Browns. Or no, not 20 years. We had a winning record when we went 10-6. But he went 5-3 second half of the year after he was let go. And after Todd Haley was let go, and we promoted the genius Freddie to offensive coordinator. And then we had Eric Mangini, who we already, he beat the Rails off Pat Shurmur in round 1. For me, because we're focusing on Browns coaching here, I'm going to go with Gregg Williams to win this. Simply because he took a team that was in complete disarray, tons of dysfunction. We just fired a coach and a coordinator. Nobody saw that coming. Promoted a guy who, fast forward one season we saw was probably a moron to offensive coordinator. And he somehow kept that team together, kept them disciplined, and we looked like a real football team going down the stretch. If we were going overall career, I'd probably have to pick Mangini because he had good years with the Jets, and I do think that he's a smart guy and a decent coach. But Brown's career, I got to go Gregg Williams.
Here's what you just said about Gregg Williams too. I mean, not only was that team in complete disarray, but they had just come off 1-15, 0-16, a terrible start, rookie quarterback,
dysfunction,
and then all of a sudden, it changed.
Yep. Split locker room. Like you had players. Yeah. Some guys wanted Tyrod. Some guys wanted Baker. Lot of problems.
I mean, I don't know what kind of discipline he brought down, or I don't know how he handled things, but it worked.
He probably was like, hey, I'll give you guys $100 bill if you go out there and get a touchdown or take that quarterback's head off.
Yeah. Gregg Williams, I liked Gregg Williams. I liked that, he's kind of in aspects a real football coach. Like I kind of like, I don't agree with the, hey, I'm going to give you money, to be on this bounty or whatnot to take this guy out in this
Allegedly.
And it didn't help that one of those guys he probably had a bounty on was Odell Beckham that he hurt in 2017, that he didn't get the job in Cleveland last year. But that was the biggest thing with Gregg Williams is the players. There's some players that really buy in, and then we're like, man, the guys are playing super well for this guy. And then when it was coming down to it, like, hey, do you guys want Gregg Williams back? Everybody was kind of like, no comment.
That I heard a lot of players, but
Odell was one of them. Demarius Randall, who's no longer in Cleveland, was one of them.
One thing I'll say about that though is fast forward a year. To me, it seems like Gregg Williams was holding the players to a standard, and they were annoyed by being held to a standard because they seem to enjoy,
loose Freddie.
Yeah, loose Freddie. Be fighting in training camp against the Colts, punching somebody from the Titans week 1, hitting somebody in the head with a helmet.
They're just representing Cleveland, man. That's
you know what I mean? So I feel it's almost like people don't like it when their boss is around. Because they'd rather just, act a fool a little bit. Gregg Williams was kind of like that good overseer of the team, held them to a higher standard, and they just were like, I don't really feel like that.
He got the most out of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure not everybody loves playing for Bill Belichick.
Right.
But when you're there, you're not screwing around.
Exactly. You got to find the people who are willing to buy into that kind of system. And if they're not willing, no matter how good they are, you have to be willing to cut ties with those guys if they're not willing to buy in.
Well, and that's what Bill does.
Yeah.
If you don't fit my system, I don't care who you are, your name, your resume, nothing. You're gone.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I mean, there's obviously, because Gregg Williams has been a successful defensive coach for a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, he was good with the Saints back when, they had everything, and Sean Payton kind of he was suspended for almost a year. It was a year, right?
Yeah,
he was suspended, and he took over. It was his fault, and he took over. And he had Drew Brees, but he did fine as a head coach there. So there's obviously other things behind the scenes that probably a lot of people don't know actually go on of the reason why he's not been a head coach, because when he has had to step into that role, he's always succeeded.
It is interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely something there. And maybe it's just his personality, and GMs are just like, hey, I can't work with this guy. I'll work with Hue Jackson, nice guy or whatnot, and he can handle Gregg Williams. But I think when it comes down to this too, I'm taking Gregg Williams as well, just because it was a lot of fun to watch the Browns when he was at the helm.
And you can't say that about many Browns teams.
I think the last coach you could say that was fun to watch our team was probably Chudzinski.
All right, Justin.
Who knows? Depending on how you're feeling on the left side of the table. Who knows?
I was saying, our receiver led the league in receiving that year. We were fun to watch. I digress.
So I love Gregg Williams. I thought it was very, very fun watching them. And there's an excitement. There's a buzz with Cleveland, which is crazy because I'm going to take Mangini. I know it obviously doesn't matter. Mangini had for me some of the more memorable wins against quality teams and had no roster. I know I don't want to get this started. I'm just saying, literally the rosters for that guy were terrible. Obviously, we're not talking about what he's done outside of Cleveland. The resume speaks for itself. I mean, he's got Super Bowl titles. But yeah, I would have to go with him. If he had that roster that, let's say, a Freddie or even, Gregg Williams had, I think that we wouldn't be talking about how miserable we are, how we don't, can't get any wins.
No, I don't disagree with you that you can't, that I wouldn't think Mangini could be picked over Gregg Williams. A lot of it's just, more recent memory too. Yeah, and Gregg Williams is fresher.
I can't even be upset with you on the pick because that guy was super fun to watch. Watching Hard Knocks and watching him interact with players and stuff was just insane.
He was one of the guys that made the show made the show interesting to watch. Like, Gregg Williams going to get after this guy.
Yeah.
And Hue Jackson's going to go buy him an ice cream.
Yeah. Well, and then the players were, they're going right back at him. I can't remember who. I want to say it was the linebacker, or no, he was an end. I can't remember, but the lozenge thing where
was it Carl Nassib?
Yeah, Nassib. Yep. And his voice is going out, and he's like, Coach, you need a lozenge. I won't go into quotations on what Gregg Williams said back to him. If you have HBO and it's not edited out, go and check that out. It's very funny. You'll laugh a lot. But that was the most fun that I've had watching the Browns.
So
probably in my entire life.
I was because I remember watching Hard Knocks and things Gregg Williams would say.
Yeah.
And Gregg Williams when they were going over tackling with Denzel Ward and he kept calling him stupid. He told the media that he was stupid for the way he tackled or whatnot. Hue Jackson actually came out and yelled at him and be like, hey, you can't call the player stupid. You can't tell the media that they're stupid. That's just the kind of guy Gregg Williams was, which is probably why players don't like him. Yeah. Hey, I'm getting paid millions of dollars. Don't be telling them the way I tackle stupid.
Well, and it's you watch, I don't know if anybody watches Last Chance U or something, any of those kind of shows. The way those coaches talk to their players, that's Gregg Williams. He just goes in there and loses his mind on you, freaks out on you, that you're about to go in for the second half and you're hype. There's a lot of energy. You go out and play well. I don't know if that's exactly what was going on there, but he got everything out of those guys.
I mean, I think sometimes we forget that football is such a highly violent contact sport. Yeah. I mean, some guys you don't want to coddle them. You don't want to be too soft because I'm telling you, this game is vicious. You know what I mean? There's really no room for political correctness in football. I'm sorry, there just isn't.
Right.
I mean, this is a team sport. You're in a battle when you're playing football. Yep. I mean, it's different than playing baseball or basketball even. I mean, these guys are running high. The adrenaline, I mean, it's crazy. And to go back into Hue Jackson real quick and how dysfunctional that team was whenever they made the shift to Gregg Williams, that was the first year that I went to a Browns training camp. And I remember sitting on the sideline and there was a coach out there just ripping play. I mean, just screaming, cursing at these guys. Just it was crazy. And I'm like, and I'm sitting a little bit back. He used to count on the other field. I'm like, that must be Gregg Williams. It was Todd Haley.
Yeah. Todd Haley was, they're kind of the same breed.
They would yell at each other. You had Todd Haley and you had Gregg Williams out there, and this is how they were running their sides of the ball, and it just was not Hue Jackson's personality at all. You know what I mean? So that's where that power struggle was.
And that's kind of another reason why Gregg Williams probably hasn't been a head coach is a lot of the head coaches, even though some of them we don't like, Bill Belichick's in a different realm of he's in control. A lot of the GMs on other teams are like, hey, if I tell you as the head coach that we need to be doing this, or you need to do your press conference this sort of way, it happens. If you tried telling that to Gregg Williams, he'd tell you to
take a hike.
Be like, no, with his visor on and his glasses. He'd tell you to get lost. Look at the
team that rolled out that year with you know what I mean? They came in, and even though they lost those first few, so it was a tie and then a loss. We were in those games. There was not a moment in any of those games where I was like, oh man, this is over. It would be 30 seconds left and we're throwing 60-yard pass against the Saints in the dome, and
I thought we were going to beat the Saints. We should have beat the Saints.
The Raiders game was insane.
Missed a field goal.
Yeah.
Or a field goal.
Missed a field goal, and it came out. I forget who our kicker was.
He got cut. It's a young kid from.
I can't remember.
Travis Kuhn.
No,
No, I don't think it was. I don't think it was Coons, but
Zaygon Gonzalez.
Yeah. And the guy was playing with like a torn groin or whatnot. That came out, and he was like, "Yeah, I just didn't want to lose my job."
Yeah, and then they cut him.
He kicked for like 3 weeks or something with like a torn groin. It killed him to kick a ball.
So we tied against the Steelers week 1 that year. Should have beat the Saints in week 2. You know, if our kicker makes a kick. Week 3 against the Raiders, should have won that game if the officials don't overturn the first down.
That was 4. Week 3 was the Jets game.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were there.
Yeah.
That was the Thursday night
Baker game.
Yep, Baker game.
Okay, so I want to rewind real quick. If Hue Jackson wins those games, would you have then said Hue is better than Freddie?
Well, how about this? Are we transitioning down to the Hue versus Pettine?
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
We've already got Williams going on to the championship here.
Yeah, Williams moves on, even though I did like Mangini, which he was another guy that was kind of surprising. Like he got like a raw end of like, hey, he tried to come and change the culture. We gave him a few years, and then he didn't go anywhere else. He didn't really go anywhere else. That was now he's just always on ESPN.
He's always on like the herd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all right, so Pettine versus Hue.
You know what you got to do.
This pains.
Can we not pick anybody and just let?
I'm picking Pettine.
I'm gonna pick Pettine too.
I mean,
if my guy would have won round 1,
I'm done.
if I would have
I know what you're.
I can argue all day Chud versus Pettine. I can't argue Hue versus
No, it's just funny.
Right.
The arguments for every matchup so far, and this one was Pettine.
Yeah, Pettine's good. Yeah, it's good. Push it along.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to argue. You know, I don't like to look at wins and losses and stuff like that, but both these guys had bad rosters, and Hue was. You know,
no. What's the best is that you argued so hard for Pettine, and then the arguments for Hue was so intense, and then this one comes up as Pettine.
It was comparing these two. It was an easy choice between these two, and like everybody hangs on to that year of like when you look at his overall career of Hue Jackson went 8-8 or whatnot out there
for the Raiders,
out there in Oakland. Then he wasn't there the next year because they knew that, and he blamed it on I think Davis, the owners, and all that. Oh, we didn't see eye to eye, yada yada yada. Like because Al Davis is like hard, like hey, you can yell at the players, and he was like, hey, no, I can't.
I don't know how to do that.
don't be silly.
But Mike Pettine, I enjoyed watching Mike Pettine as a coach because he looked like a football coach to me. He acted like a football coach. I mean, there was a lot of times like him and Kyle Shanahan. We talked about him. He was the offensive coordinator of the 7 and 9 year, and like those two would get into it on like the sidelines or whatnot. Like there was one video where Pettine like told him like run the ball or whatnot, like run the ball. It was like one of the like their famous exchanges, and Shanahan just kind of gave him a look and called a pass and scored a touchdown or whatnot. And Pettine and Shanahan's like, we did that stuff all the time. It was just caught on tape or whatnot. That was the way he like pushed me or whatnot. And look where Shanahan's at today.
Yeah.
Not that Pettine had anything to do with that, because I'm not saying that he did.
Right.
Pettine probably tells people like, "Oh yeah, look, he coached under me. Look what happened. Look what
I'm hearing
I made him."
Pettine pushed away the best coach the Browns have ever had.
No, I think ownership pushed away Kyle Shanahan. He said there was
Johnny Manziel pushed away.
There was no way that Shanahan was like, "Hey man, I just want to stick around here and coach for Jimmy Haslam." I think that
has anybody ever said that?
No,
I think that's one of the biggest, even going into this year, the biggest problem with the Browns, whether our ownership just cannot just get out of the way and let people do their job.
Here's a different question that we could have, because we all have, what were our expectations of the Browns last year?
What were they?
Yeah, what did you guys think going into the season?
I can literally remember
at least 10 wins.
I already said I was real stupid last year.
Yeah. Okay, so like high expectations, right, with Freddie Kitchens. Mm-hmm. And then now this year we're kind of like, we're going to table with Kevin Stefanski, a more proven NFL with the same roster.
I'm not going to lie. I'm the same idiot every year. Every year I'm like, this is it. We're doing it. We're doing it right now.
Yeah, so that's just like one of those things that, like this year, because I think I'm hoping, I think all of us hope Stefanski's the answer for our coaching staff. What if he comes out and goes 6-10? Are we saying
you can't fire him?
Here's the thing: it wasn't just 6-10 last year that got Freddie fired.
I'm not saying it was,
No,
but
it was
I'm
the
saying
incompetence.
It was,
I mean,
yes, it
I'm
was
saying
those
how-
penalties.
if he comes out and he goes 4-12,
it depends on how we look.
Yeah.
it depends on how we look. If we go 4-12,
Do we go 4-12 and have 4 blowout losses? A player gets suspended for the rest of the season, and we average 12 penalties a game.
Well, man, Freddie had to deal with all that.
I'm with Zach a little bit on this. If it was 4-12 or like 3-13, I think then we got it. It doesn't really matter how we lost those games.
We went through game by game and just did our breakdown. And I had us at 9-7 when we talked earlier, and then I just had us at 11-5.
Yeah.
Like our schedule, there's no reason we shouldn't win more than 5 games, 6 games. I mean, our schedule is one of the easiest in the NFL this year.
What if it happens like this? What if Baltimore comes out and they're saying they're 15-1, something like that? Mm-hmm. What if Roethlisberger comes out and is 2-3 years ago Ben Roethlisberger? What if Joe Burrow is every bit as good as everybody's been saying he is, and he just comes out and
AJ Green's healthy and the career year,
and they're big and they're really good. I mean,
that's 6 games that you got to play that are tough.
Yeah, and I know we've watched the Cincinnati ones. We're like, yeah, we're hands down better than that team. But I'm just saying, like, as a Browns fan, it wouldn't shock me at all.
Right?
But do I want to start over again? I don't know.
I don't think you can fire a coach after 1 year again. I don't think you can do that 2 years in a row.
So before we move into this final matchup, Williams and Pettine, talking about Stefanski, one thing that I really do like about the narrative is that last year we did interview him, and then we picked Freddie over him.
Right, which is surprising.
But he didn't go and take a position somewhere else. He stayed in Minnesota, and they kept him. They had a great offense last year. They were a great team to they moved the ball, they scored the ball. He knew how to use the players he had.
Yep.
And now we turned around, we said, okay, we screwed up, made a mistake. Come on back. Well, we'll hire you now. And he took the job.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we moved on to some other random guy that we never heard of, or last year he ended up going and, being an OC somewhere else and they sucked or anything like that. Or he was a head coach somewhere last year and they won 3 games. Like, he went right back to Minnesota. They won a lot of games. They looked good. And now he's our head coach.
Here's 2 things about Stefanski. One thing, I'm optimistic because if you watch the Vikings last year, the offense didn't start that great, and there's a lot of complaining, and he kind of adapted, trying to change things up a little bit, opened it up a little bit, and then they really flourished under him. Mm-hmm. So he showed a willingness to, hey, I can do this better. I am learning on the fly a little bit, and then he took him. One thing that kind of scares me about him is how high Paul DePodesta is on him. Because to this point so far, Paul DePodesta does not have a good track record with evaluating talent, coach, nothing.
Nothing, not at all.
This guy is like the kiss of death when it comes to NFL talent. So
the thing that worries me and that I think a lot of people forget is like Josh just mentioned, he was a candidate last year and we chose Freddie over him. So there was something there. And I know Baker was a Freddie guy and a lot of the players liked Freddie because they were comfortable with him. But there was still something there that you didn't choose Stefanski.
Apparently Podesta wanted Stefanski, but Dorsey wanted Freddie. And so they went with Dorsey because they were like, we made this guy in charge for a reason. We're going to do what he wants. That's why Dorsey's not there anymore, though. He had to die by the sword.
Right. And there's other things that kind of came out because I was a huge John Dorsey fan. I went out and bought the hoodie or whatnot. I was a big John Dorsey fan. But then after kind of some things came out, you're like, well, maybe this guy wasn't. I mean, he looked great, turned the team around, but then some of the other things he did, like a hiring a Freddie type, and But yeah, it worries me in a sense where we got I got high expectations that Stefanski's going to come in with the roster we got, and he's going to, be able to put this together. We're going to be unstoppable offensively. It worries me a little bit that he's never been the guy in charge. We don't know if he's calling plays yet or if it's going to be, Van Pelt?
And he's saying they're really not, like preseason was going to be how they decided that. And now they're still, I just saw something like 2 days ago where they're like, yeah, we're still not sure who's going to play. I'm like, make a,
you got to make a decision now because that's going to dictate everything. Because if you don't, and you say you go with, I think it's Alex Van Pelt, I think is our OC.
Yeah.
If you go with him and like you make that decision a couple weeks before, like, oh yeah, he's going to call the plays, you're already like not sure. Like I feel like you got to make a decision and be like, hey, this is what we're doing, type of a thing, because I think that you'll get into that, decision making of, man, well, maybe I should call plays in the fourth quarter because we're down 14, and I don't think we want to go down that road.
I have a lot to add to that, but I'm going to table it for another time so we can get into our championship here.
Yep.
So this, our championship now is Gregg Williams versus Mike Pettine. To me, there's a clear winner and there's a clear big L squared loser. And to me, the winner is Gregg Williams.
Well, I think if you go based off the best coaches that we have in the last, these last 7 coaches that we had to pick from, I think Gregg Williams in his career in Cleveland was the best coach.
Thank God, because I was ready to just go in on you.
even though if you do let me look up Cleveland Browns history of coaches ranked. Mike Pettine's top 10 all time. So.
Well, you guys want to know,
right?
Here's a little bit of information I heard the other day about Van Pelt, the offensive coordinator. And this is another thing, and all of a sudden I felt that normal Browns fan in me go like, oh, I'm getting excited for the year. He was the one who coached Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, okay.
Whenever he, I think, was making that transition into the starter and everything, so with Green Bay. And they were saying, this guy could have that, hand of influence in Baker Mayfield's development.
I think we need a better quarterbacks. Who was our quarterbacks coach the last couple of years?
That's what it was. Van Pelt was the quarterbacks coach for Aaron Rodgers.
Who was our quarterbacks coach? Was it named Ryan Lindley or something like that?
Lindsley or
I can't remember what our
let me look it up. I got it.
He obviously wasn't keeping tabs on Baker last year. like every time he'd be doing something on his computer, he'd turn around, Baker would be gone at the Cheesecake Factory.
He had to do the Cheesecake Factory again. Man. Oh my gosh.
It was Kevin Zampese was in 2018, which the Hard Knocks, I think it was Bob Wiley. That was the offensive line coach. I know, that's who I'm talking about, the big guy, Hut.
Yeah.
In the Hard Knocks, fandom that everybody loved watching him on there. He said that in 2000, the year with Gregg Williams and Freddie Kitchens, and everybody was like, man, we really turned the season around. Offense really started clicking. That was the guy that
did it. I heard that.
He was the guy responsible for the offense finally turning around and clicking. And then I'm not sure if he was he there last year? I don't know if he was there last year.
I don't think so. I remember him saying that, coming out and being like, guys, this Freddie guy didn't do nothing.
Yeah, so
it was this other guy.
No, he was not there. So he had that and was very successful. And then Freddie probably was like, hey, I got the job. That was the guy that got me this job. I'm getting him out of here because he's going to take mine.
Yeah.
Because he ended up going down he was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Legends, and he was the quality control analyst for Florida, and he's the quarterback coach for the Washington football team now.
Oh, okay.
So he's back in the NFL with Dwayne Haskins, Alex Smith.
Yeah, future starter Alex Smith.
I think he, as long as he's got to pass all the physical stuff. And I don't know what goes into all that, because we've seen with a lot of guys like Drew Brees back when he was hurt, Miami, he didn't pass the test down there. So, and then he went on to New Orleans and history.
San Diego just got rid of him.
They were like, oh, no, he's never going to play again. Indianapolis, Peyton Manning's never going to be the same.
Yeah.
He was for a couple years.
Yeah.
Justin, did you take your...
Yeah.
Did you throw your shot on this championship matchup?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy it's Gregg. I mean, I said, that's the most excited week to week that I've been, other than going into last year.
It was the first time we had a week 17 game that meant something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was so drunk. And I was trashed at this. I was at this buddy's house. We were doing euchre and listening to the game. And by the second quarter, I was hammered. And then, it made it tougher that, we went down that road. And those teams, that was a great game to watch, and I really did think we were going to end up beating them. But
I do want to say with this bracket, so we all, do you agree, Greg?
Yeah, I'm with you guys on this.
Okay, so we just polished a turd.
Yeah.
You know,
Guys.
like we were lots of arguing. You would have thought we were arguing about like Hall of Fame coaches.
No.
None of these guys are going to the Hall of Fame.
None of these guys. Well, I mean, a couple of them are still doing some stuff, but a lot of them are like, they sold me a laptop, you know, a few weeks ago, or Best Buy.
But yeah, I think Gregg Williams, just based on the lack of, you know, anything we had prior to him.
Yeah, I think coming into this bracket, when we looked at our coaches, I would say that, you know, he was probably our best one the last decade.
It would have been very interesting to see who we came with if we didn't include him, because, you know, not coaching the whole season.
Well, it would have been Mike Pettine. Top 10 all time, Cleveland Browns head coach. Don't worry, Chud was on the list at 11, just to make you feel better. He was
that even makes it even more.
Where was Pettine?
9.
I know.
Yeah,
this was on the ranker.
So it's a closer argument than you like to think.
I'm trying to look and see. Bill Belichick was on the list at 5th.
Jeez.
Wow. All right. Well, hey, that wraps up our our bracket. Gregg Williams, congratulations. Call us in for your prize. We don't actually have a prize for Gregg Williams. I don't think he'd care. But Gregg, you are the according to us, the best coach we've had in the last 10 years, and which is crazy because I did not want the Browns to hire him full time after that year.
Yeah, I was really back and forth on that one too.
And I felt I'm not going to say that I wanted Freddie, but I did not want Gregg. I was like, this, I don't know. I just didn't want him to be my head coach, but he's the best head coach we've had in the last 10 years. Yeah. That's just because we've had so much crap.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. So thanks for checking out this episode. Let us know who you guys think was the best Browns coach in the last 10 years. Please comment. Let Zach know how crazy he is for the, Freddie Kitchens, Mike Pettine take. You can let him know on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. The handles are at the top of the screen. Again, please subscribe on YouTube. We really want to get to 100 subscribers, make us feel really good about ourselves. Make sure you guys check us out next week when we break down the NFL 100 list that was voted on by the players. There's some crazy stuff in that. And we'll catch you guys next week. Everybody have a good week.